Okay, and back for the second episode. My last one was sort of cut off short while I was starting to talk about similarities between Polish and British Romanticism, but to be honest, I don't think it's important enough to waste time. So let's get right into the second generation of Romantic poets. Just please remember, if you share my video anywhere else, you will be prosecuted. So don't put it on any servers, please. Okay, second generation. They differed from the first generation in the following ways, and yes, I am totally stealing someone's presentation. So, they were revolutionary rebels. They were talented and fascinating. I don't agree with the nature was hostile element. I think they also appreciated nature just like their predecessors in the first generation. However, they represented nature in a much more powerful way, and their poems didn't focus on saying, "Oh, the beautiful daffodils in the fields," like Coleridge and Wordsworth. Instead, they talked about how nature was strong, powerful, and they liked to compare nature to change and to suggest change through nature. They believed society was against them. I guess they were these sort of loner outcasts. They suffered because they felt alone and misunderstood. They all died young in tragic circumstances, anti-conformist, and they believed that poetry could inspire, not teach, which is similar to the previous ones, although the previous ones from the first generation were more like, the poetry is my emotions, while here it's the poetry is beauty and my emotions added. So the main three people we learned about: first, Percy Bysshe Shelley, I'm assuming. I have no idea how to say his last name beautifully, so that is all you will get. His poem, Ode to the West Wind. In context, he was rather radical with his beliefs for the time period. He supported the abolition of slavery, you go king, Irish independence, once again, cool guy. He campaigned for a non-violent approach to resist unjust power structures. So he was a very cool guy by our standards, but for the people at the time, he was revolutionary in a bad way. He was going against society and the main ideas at the time. Europe was becoming more and more conservative, and Shelley was becoming a lot more leftist and had different values. So the main idea linked with his poetry and with the later Romantic poets from this second generation is the ode. So this is a serious, complex and lyrical text established in ancient Greece by Pindar. There are three types of odes. There's a Pindaric, which is regular, the prototype, the first one to appear; Horatian, which is shorter, single stanza and meditative; and Cowleian, irregular. I don't remember what that means, but I doubt it will be on test. So, the West Wind. It's a very elevated ode. It's similar to the Pindaric one. He glorifies the wind, but also makes it a personal matter. He shows that the wind is change, and we need the change. In his poem, he uses terza rima, a type of stanza composed of interlinked tercets, joined with each other by common rhyme. This is in the glossary, by the way, so I won't waste more time on it. But it's in a regular classical iambic pentameter. So the wind can symbolize art, poetry, a wind of change, revolution, the passage of time, and the power of nature, which is once again sublime, linking to the first-gen poets. He uses autumn imagery, which is a time of death, stagnation, and contrasts it with this image of spring rebirth, which is once again sort of pointing at a revolution, like, let's kill what we have now and be reborn stronger and better. And the wind is cyclical, both the destroyer and the preserver. The contrast between its beauty, but also its deathly might, is a big focus. And Shelley awaits for the spring to bring along change. So he's sort of passing on his political views through his poetry, which is characteristic of the second-gen poets. Next up, second guy, John Keats. This is him. Say hello. So, in his poems, we need to remember about the term ekphrasis, a vivid, often dramatic, verbal description of a visual work of art. So here, we had his poem Ode on a Grecian Urn. It's called On a Grecian Urn because it's not about the urn, it's to the urn. And it's about something that is physically drawn onto the urn. So the themes here are meditation on mortality and immortality, and the relevance of beauty, eternal life that is frozen in time. So, according to him, only through beauty humankind can come to truth, and only through the truth can humankind become beautiful. So it's linking these two abstract ideas, making them one, and suggesting that poets can achieve this. The author leaves questions unanswered, and sort of reflects on many possibilities of life. He's indulging into his desire to explore the unknown, just like in Kubla Khan we talked about Orientalism. It's a story of two lovers, and it's very paradoxical. They are depicted in the urn, and technically they are together forever, but then again they are dead, so they are no longer together. So their love is eternal because it was captured by artists. However, physically they are no longer within each other's reach. Later I have written down, the spring will be everlasting, the songs will never end, the lovers will forever burn with passion. So these are the positive sides of them being caught on this urn, while the negative ones are that this is unattainable for normal people. Eternal happiness is impossible for people like John Keats. And the most important sort of quote, beauty is truth, truth beauty. So through art it is possible to represent these two ideas, strongly interlocked. And third up, Lord Byron. Once again, the fifth white guy we are talking about so far. So this is him. This is also him. His real name was George Gordon. And from what I remember from the lessons, he was really popular in Poland, but from these three guys, he was the least popular in England. So he wrote my favorite poem from all these lessons, The Darkness, where he sort of describes what would happen if light disappeared from the world and if the sun just stopped shining. It's very gloomy in comparison. It's unlike the other poems. It doesn't conclude happily, and instead it leaves the reader with a dilemma and emotional guilt. In my opinion, it was groundbreaking, but those are just my words. So it was written in 1816, which was a year without summer, because of a volcanic eruption, and there was so much ash in the air that it was a lot darker and a lot colder. And people began to fear that the sun was dying, and of course this guy also felt that way. So the poem sort of leans on a last man trope. This means that the human race dies out until only one man is left. And here are some of his predictions. So nature hibernates, social hierarchy is abandoned, nothing has value anymore, people turn on each other, no more moral values, survival of the fittest. Humans are at fault for letting their inner darkness consume them, and it's a commentary on the evil of human nature, how we pretend to be civilized, but if things got worse, we would all quickly turn on each other. So as you can see throughout all these three poems, and all these three poets, everyone has something to say about the nature of humanity, and about what needs to change in society for us to be better on Earth. And the last term that's important for Lord Byron is enjambment. And this is when lines end and begin in weird places within the stanza. It makes the poem quicker, but at the same time, it's more chaotic and unstructured, and it reflects the chaos of the poems. So I guess if I look it up real quick, The Darkness, Lord Byron. Yeah, so as you see, some of the sentences end in the middle, some are drawn out, some have commas, some are ended with colons, some have dashes, and this is enjambment. So technically it flows, but it's sort of unstructured in comparison to more refined poetry. So to sort of sum up, first generation poets love nature, love emotions, called the lake poets, focus on nostalgia, memories, the beauty of life. Second generation poets, they want to rebel against the first poets and against all of society. They have revolutionary views. They want their poetry to be meaningful, but also not used as something to teach. They want to inspire change. The main morals were also straightforward in majority of cases. And also the second generation poets sort of left behind the ballad and focused more on the ode. So that is everything for this episode. Thank you and goodbye.